Shalom. Today we're going to be focusing on the Torah portion from the book of Numbers. While the Torah portion is from chapters 13 to 16, we're going to be focusing on a very important story. The spies that were sent to scout the Promised Land. This was a huge moment for the people of Israel. It was the moment they had been all waiting for. The promise that was made to their father Abraham was coming into fruition. They were so close to entering into this promise that was made long ago. They had reached their destination, and all they needed to do was make the preparations to cross over. One of these preparations was to scout the land and see who or what was there. After all, it had been many, many years since Abraham had seen the land himself. He had been dead for a very long time, and it was bound to be occupied at some point if his own people were not occupying the land. So in the portion, we see that there are 12 spies that were sent out into the land to scout it. Joshua and Caleb were 2 of the 12 sent in. However, when they came back to Moses, they gave the report of those who were occupying the land. The different people and the descendants of Anak were there. These were mighty men according to the spies, and they felt there was no chance for them to win against them. And as a matter of fact, they even compared themselves to grasshoppers compared to these individuals. This is how big the spies saw these people who were currently occupying the land. Therefore, they had chosen to be ruled by fear rather than faith that Adonai, their Elohim, their God, would see to it that he would fulfill everything he promised he would do. They paid more attention to their temporary circumstances, and this would cost them greatly. They even went so far to the point where they were conspiring to kill Moses and Aaron. Even though Joshua and Caleb tried to speak to the people, they tried to get them to see that they could accomplish the goal, the mission that was originally given to them, so that they could possess the land that was promised. But the people said something very crucial. They said that they would have rathered to go back to Egypt. They would rather go back to slavery. You see, this is a really important piece that we need to understand here when we're listening to this Torah portion and taking the time to study it, because I once heard a quote from a movie when I was a child, and it said, "Fear and faith cannot exist at the same time." And boy, was that movie true. Even though it was a kid's movie, there was truth to that statement. Since the people of Israel chose fear rather than faith in Adonai, their God, and they were willing to go back to the very bondage that they were set free from, the Lord forbid them from entering the land. Although some of the Israelites heard this decree made by the Lord, and they tried to force their hand, force their will. And they tried to go into the land anyways to possess what they could. But the Lord was not with them in their conquest, and they ended up dying at the hands of those who were already living there. This incident began the 40-year wilderness journey that the Israelites had to go on. None of them were allowed to enter as a result of this sin. They were so close to achieving the goal, but because they chose fear, they missed out on their prophetic destiny. And their children had to pick up the slack in the future. So I have a question for all of you to think about. How often do we choose fear over faith in our lives? Like the Israelites, we see things going on in our lives and we allow fear to rule over our decision making rather than moving in faith that God is with us and that He will lead us through our trials. God wants us to go after our issues head on by choosing faith, because it is in faith that we see fear conquered. Since Joshua and Caleb were the only two of those 12 spies that chose faith rather than fear, they were allowed to enter into the promised land when the next generation of Israelites were born. However, God doesn't want you to have to endure the same thing. You are not destined for the same fate. He wants you to enter into your purpose now. When you choose faith, you choose God.